Don Hodges here with another story that revolves around Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. I call this story, Hey, how much have I forgiven you? Now one night, it's about 4 or 5 years ago, I was at home watching the evening news, and there was a story on there about a guy who was really jealous because he thought his girlfriend was giving all her attention to her 2-year-old son. And this guy wasn't, the father, but he felt like if he could get this 2-year-old out of the picture, he'd have this girl all to himself. And as hard to believe as this is, while the girl was sleeping, he took the 2-year-old son out to the pool and drowned him at this apartment complex at night. And then, and left the door ajar as if the kid had wandered out and gotten into the pool. And so when they questioned him, he denied everything, And as I was watching the news, I almost couldn't take just hearing the story. Because at the time, my grandson was 2 years old. And just the thought of this guy drowning a kid just made me sick. And I just had this, hatred for this guy. Well, the next couple of days when it was playing out in the news, I really didn't want to listen. So whenever I heard it starting, I would just turn it off. I didn't really want to hear any details. And you know how the news media is. I always want to give you way more than you need as far as details go. So anyhow, I think about 4 or 5 days had passed, and I got a letter in the mail from a Gideon in Phoenix, which is where I live, and I had done some jail ministry for the Gideons. And so they contacted me because a woman had written to them and wanted to see if a Gideon would go and visit this guy who committed this crime, who had confessed. Now what had happened is there was a lady back in Illinois who, I think maybe 10 years ago, a guy had broken into her daughter's apartment to rob the apartment, not knowing she was there, and killed her, and then stole a bunch of stuff. And then days later, he felt so guilty he confessed to the murder. And this woman just had a heart of compassion for this guy, even though he had killed her daughter. It's hard to believe. And so she asked if there was any Gideons in the town that would go visit this guy in jail while he was going through the trial. And evidently while he was in jail, a Gideon went and visited him and shared the Lord with him, and this guy accepted the Lord into his heart and got saved. And this woman kept in contact with him even after he got sentenced and went to prison. This woman, kept writing him in prison because she knew that it was just, sin had got a hold of this guy when he committed this crime. And so anyway, she had compassion for this guy in our city who had killed this 2-year-old. So the Gideon that sent me the letter included a news article from the Arizona Republic, kind of telling the story. And so as I was sitting there, I saw the note saying, hey, would you go visit this guy in jail? And then I was reading the news article, and in the news article, it got really specific and said the difficulty this guy had, the thing that haunted him and got him to confess, was he couldn't get it out of his mind as he was holding this kid underwater. The kid was looking up at him and just couldn't believe what was happening because this 2-year-old knew him, and he just couldn't shake that picture in his mind of how he had taken this innocent life like that. And it just made me sick to my stomach. And I thought, I'm not going to visit this guy. What do I care if this guy ever knows the Lord or not? This guy deserves punishment, big time. And it's as if the Lord just spoke to my heart and said, hey, look at how much I've forgiven you. Wow. And it just was heavy at the time. And I thought, Lord, as much as I don't have any compassion for this guy at all, I'm going to go ahead and visit him because I think that's what you want me to do. And I know you've forgiven me, and but I just didn't feel it towards this guy. But I just had a sense this is what the Lord wanted me to do, so I was going to do it anyway, even though I didn't have any feelings of compassion. So I didn't know what jail he was in. There's 4 or 5 that he could have been in town here. But I went down to the first one that came to mind. I went down there. I had a badge to get into the jail, and I went to the window and said, hey, I just want to see this guy. And they said, sure enough, he was there. So they put me in a holding place where they could come in, and we actually was a room where I could sit in there, and he would just come in and sit. This was before they made you do video kind of conferencing. They actually let the inmate sit in there with you. And the thing that struck me when the guy showed up is he was really fearful, because when you kill kids and you end up in jail, or you commit a sex crime with a kid or something, you are a target the whole time you're in. And if you go to prison, I mean, the chances of you getting rolled and killed are pretty good. So I was talking to this guy, and he said he had some people come in, some priests came and saw him, and he just didn't have any peace. So I shared with him, what happened and how I felt when I saw the story. And I just told him straight. And I said, but God impressed upon me that look at how much he's forgiven me, and that his son, Jesus, died on the cross and bore not only my sins, but that guy's sins and every other sin ever committed on the planet, and then died in our place. And God loved him so much that he sent Jesus to die for his crime, just like he died for my crime. And so I ended up praying with this guy, to accept the Lord into his heart. And I didn't know if he really did or not. I prayed with him, and I had this just a sense that he was going to try to kill himself. And so I told him, look, if you really have given your life to the Lord, then he owns you. It says you've been bought with a price, and so now you're his. And so let him decide how long you live. Don't you decide. Don't try to take your own life when you're in here. Let the Lord decide. And so I prayed with him, and I left. And as I was driving in my car, I thought, God, you are just amazing, so merciful. And even though I really believe people should get, have consequences to their action, I always like it when I don't have consequences to mine. But I know that, there's times you experience consequences, and when it comes to things that are illegal, there's consequences. And so he could maybe spend the rest of his life in prison, in fear, really. Don't know. But at least eternity would change if you really did accept the Lord. And so the reason I talk about Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6 is because those verses say, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. You see, this is something, I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to go see that guy. I didn't even want to listen to the news story. But God had a different plan, because he was trying to teach me something, and he was wanting to use me in that situation. And so he directed my paths. I would have never had done any of that stuff. But I was glad he did, because I had a chance to, pray with this guy, and it changed my heart. Not that I thought there was, it's okay when people do these kind of things. It's still despicable. It's righteous anger. But to learn to hate the sin and to love the sinner. And that can only happen by the power of God and the Holy Spirit, let me tell you. But he loved me enough to die for me, and he loves you enough to die for you. So hopefully it ministers to you too. And that's the story. That's a story about forgiveness. God bless you.